Friday, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are here today at Mavens of Manufacturing. This is episode number 46, and today's guest is Liz Taylor, which I think is one of the coolest names out there because I was a huge fan of the actress back in the day, so I'm a bit jealous that you have her name. But thank you for joining us today, Elizabeth. You are the director of STEM at the School of Manufacturing in Milwaukee. And I was just wondering if you could provide us a little bit more background information about yourself and some of your main responsibilities at MSOE before we start diving into other questions for you.
Sure. Sounds good. And congratulations on 1 year, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't even know until one of my connections made a post, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's crazy how fast it went by.
Yeah, that's how I feel about LinkedIn anniversary reminders. I'm like, oh yeah, it's been another year. Cool. Yeah, you captured it pretty well. I'm the director of STEM at Milwaukee School of Engineering, which I'll just say MSOE from here on out. It's a bit of a mouthful. So I oversee STEM outreach through our We Energy STEM Center at MSOE, which also, to keep things short, I'll refer to as the STEM Center. It's a brand new 10,000 square foot facility located on the north side of our campus, and it's fully dedicated to K12 outreach. So whether that's getting students exposed to hands-on opportunities in STEM, supporting local robotics teams, but we also have a lot of our campus community members like faculty, staff, and students that use it too. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little more throughout the podcast. But my big responsibilities are connecting to the community. So helping schools, educators, nonprofits that can benefit from our space and our expertise to connect with those opportunities, as well as helping the campus at large kind of connect into the community through STEM outreach. Before coming to MSOE, I was a mechanical engineer and worked in manufacturing. So one of the things that I was really excited coming to MSOE was this opportunity to share what these different fields look like. What does it mean to be in these different fields of engineering, especially ones that I know I never heard about, like industrial engineering, until I was a collegiate student and eventually working in those fields.
So you mentioned that you were a student, and I'm just curious to know, because one of the biggest challenges that we seem to be running into as a whole entire sector within manufacturing and engineering is, exposing younger generations to potential opportunities that can lead them to STEM career pathways. So was engineering and manufacturing, or just STEM overall, something that you always enjoyed doing? Like, what inspired you to actually pursue something within STEM?
Yeah. It's funny, when I was in engineering school, I remember having classmates who were like, oh, I always love to tinker with things and take things apart. And I could not relate to that. I'm like, what? I enjoy how things work and solving problems. And I wanted to be a lawyer for a really long time. And then I got to high school and had a phenomenal physics teacher. And the way he taught physics was all very hands-on. So when we were learning about projectile motion, we built a cannon, took it out to the football field, did the calculations, and went and shot, like, I think it was potatoes out of this big cannon to understand, like, what does that actually look like applied. And that really opened my eyes, one, to like, oh, there's so much out there that I can do that's more than just math on a sheet of paper. But also made me feel more confident. Like, well, I like doing this kind of stuff. It's cool to figure out how something works, and whatever I'm doing on paper actually happens in real life. That coupled with a Girl Scout outreach event I did before taking that physics class and seeing, it was led by a Society of Women Engineers chapter at UW La Crosse. And I just remember being like, whoa, there's girls doing STEM. These are all engineering students. And I didn't do math all day. And that's awesome.
I'm not a fan of math either. I still use my fingers when I have to add or subtract stuff, and I get made fun of all the time by my sister, who she went down that whole math route, and I went down the whole English route. So she always reaches out to me when she's having a hard time writing papers and stuff. So it's kind of funny that way. With all of that, you mentioned a lot of great things, including some of the organizations that you were involved with that really help bring girls together and kind of empower one another to, feel comfortable in a space where we don't have really high numbers in. And then you also talked about the importance of your physics teacher, which is another thing that I'm trying to get out there as well too. Like, teachers are also becoming very rare in this sector, and we not only need to have help filling the skills gap within manufacturing, but we also need help recruiting more teachers that are willing to do the VOTEC programs within the high school. So it's really great to hear that you had those wonderful opportunities. And that's some of the messaging I'm trying to get across as well too, is, let's work together and start building up these schools within our communities and help them with whatever needs they need, whether it's equipment, materials, mentors, or even volunteer teachers, from manufacturing companies to help teach some of these courses. One of the things I wanted to ask you in particular, because you do a lot of community work and you mentioned that you work with kids through K-7, what are some of the things that you are doing at MSOE to really get involved with the community? Like, what's your strategy there?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So one is just the accessibility of programming in general. And then the other is, what does that programming look like and how does it inform future career choices or class choices, especially in middle school and upper elementary, when students kind of progressively in a lot of our schools, middle school, they get some elective choices, high school, they get more elective choices. So on the accessibility front, one of the things we've worked really hard to do is making our programs accessible in a number of ways. So one is providing free programming for any student that needs it, including classroom-based programming. So for schools that have a high percentage of economically disadvantaged students, a lot of our programs are run free of charge, thanks to the philanthropic support of our donors at the STEM Center. But we've also been able to take programs to the classrooms. So the engineer in me, when I first started here, I was like, all right, let's do some root cause analysis. Why are we not seeing as many schools in some of these programs on our campus? And after talking to teachers, it was, well, like getting a bus for a big period of time is hard, or for a 1 hour activity, like we're going to spend more time on the bus and it doesn't make sense to charge a field trip fee. Or simply a busing transportation is just not available. So having programming that's flexible and meets school needs has really helped our ability to serve more students and making sure everybody has the opportunity to engage in our programs if they're interested in being a part of them. And then on the programming side of things, in the K-8 space, especially like high school, we really want the programming to still be exciting and fun, but we also are aware like students are getting close to making post-high school choices. So whether that's a 2-year school, a 4-year school, going direct into industry. And I personally feel it's really important for students to be excited, but also know the rigor that's coming, because I've met when I was a student and just working on a college campus, it's still not an uncommon thing that a student shows up for their first day of college and like, what the heck is this? Like, this is not at all what I expected when I did a pre-college program or what I saw in my classrooms. But at the K-8 space, we really focus on the excitement, really getting them to understand different opportunities that are out there, but also tying those to careers and tangible opportunities. So for a kindergartner, I'm probably not going to get super in depth into like, well, this is what an industrial engineer would do, and here's where they work. But I might say like, hey, you're using math that engineers use very broadly. So we talk about fractions or proportions and how those translate to production rates or defect rates. So trying to scaffold learning to where students are at and helping kind of bring them along the pipeline to understand what those actually look like as careers.
I think that's really interesting, because there is a difference between exposing kids and then actually talking about things that are connected with STEM opportunities. Next week, I'll be talking with Jennifer Ponser. I'm pretty sure I messed up her last name, so if I did, Jennifer, I'm sorry. But she works with a group called Career Street in Erie, Pennsylvania. I hope that's the right city. I have to look at my notes, but I keep thinking it's Erie. Hopefully it is, but she's in the Pennsylvania area, and she does a lot of activity building too for kids that are younger before high school. And one of the things that she mentioned was like these coloring book activities that they do, where it's not just with manufacturing and engineering careers. It's like all trade industries. It's like the mailman or a bank cashier or something, and it's showing what they do on a regular basis and then tying that in with another picture or something that connects the two. So I think that's a really interesting way to expose kids without really like saying, hey, this is engineering and manufacturing, but also making it fun too. Another organization that I really love and hold close to my heart is First Robotics, because they actually take Legos. And what kid didn't like playing with Legos at a younger age? Like, I'm still playing with them now because I have 2 toddlers at home, but I think connecting those opportunities together is a really fun way to do that. Do you work with organizations like FIRST or organizations like Women in Manufacturing, where you mentioned the Society of Women Engineers? Do you collaborate with them in any form to help, bring kids to MSOE? How's that strategy for recruiting for you?
Yeah, the short answer is heck yeah, all across the board. So I won't speak too much to like what happens on our campus for student orgs because I know I won't do it justice, but we do have those professional societies for our students. So Society of Women Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Every major has their own professional org, like American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And a lot of those groups work with our STEM team to run outreach activities. So one example is ASME, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and SWE. I'm going to move to acronyms from here on out since I define them. ASME and SWE every fall run a Women in Engineering, specifically Mechanical Engineering Introduction Day. So they take them around to our labs, different professors from our ME department talk about what they do in those labs as students, and then they engage in a hands-on activity alongside our students and faculty at the end. So that's like a very structured, very much led by the students activities. And then on the flip side, sometimes they'll support activities my staff is running. So if we have an after school weekend or evening program, it's not uncommon for MSOE students, faculty, or staff to be involved as volunteers or leads. With FIRST, we have one full-time staff member on my team who only does FIRST. That's what he lives and breathes. It's his full-time job. So here in the center, a minor plug for us, for those in the Milwaukee area, of our 10,000 square feet, about 3,000 to 4,000 is FIRST dedicated, which means we have a FIRST Lego League. We have 2 fields up in the center year round, a FIRST Tech Challenge field, and we're hoping to get an FRC level field in, or at least part of it. And any team who, one thing we ran into is a lot of schools, especially in the central city, that we mentor and work with. We have MSOE students through our department that go to schools to help them start FIRST teams and then help sustain them through technical mentorship. A lot of schools, especially when you get to the bigger FTC fields, like there's just not space in any school to, I shouldn't say in many schools, to set up those fields. I mean, they would easily take up a whole classroom. Mm-hmm. So you had teams that were building and working on robots, maybe having the field elements that they would work, the robot would interact with on game day, but then they never set foot on a field until their qualifier event or their scrimmage. So any team is welcome to come to the STEM Center free of charge to use our fields at any time, or not quite 24/7, but it feels pretty close to it some nights, if they want to work and build their robot here in the space and work on our fields. So FIRST, I could go on and on about for a long time, but they're one of our stronger partners along with Vex Robotics.
And before I get into my next question, I noticed that on this platform, it's letting me know that the stream isn't showing up on LinkedIn, or there's difficult, and it's not on my end, it's on LinkedIn's end. Apparently it's been an ongoing problem. So anyone watching from other channels, please pass that message along. And if you're watching and you have questions or comments, please feel free to share them. I do get comments on Facebook and YouTube, and we would love to pull them up and have a conversation as well too. So yeah, if you're not on LinkedIn and you have a LinkedIn account, please let them know, because I would love everybody to participate. And I'm really sorry about that, Liz, because that kind of puts a damper on our viewership. But my other question, my follow-up question to you working with organizations such as FIRST, what about manufacturers within Milwaukee or the surrounding areas? Do you have partnerships with them? Do companies come to the school and either donate or, take part in some of these projects, offer facility tours? How's that relationship?
Yeah, super strong. MSOE, just as a university, a big part of the kind of who we are is that industry experience. Most of our faculty it's very uncommon to see a faculty member here straight out of academia. Most of them have worked in industry for a number of years before they come and teach. And as a part of that too, we have a lot of students that intern starting their freshman through their senior years with local companies. So we have some companies that partner with us because they want to hire our students, but what we see is a lot of corporate partners who are supporting numerous areas of the university, my STEM department included. And I'm pretty sure I'll catch everyone. I apologize to any donors watching this if I missed your name. I don't think I will. But the STEM Center itself was fully funded by philanthropic partners, almost all of which are university partners as well. So We Energies, by nature of the name, you can probably infer they were a large donor to the space. Rockwell Automation invested in the space, and a lot of these donors also have provided ongoing programmatic support, so helping fund us to continue to do outreach, be able to make programs in the space free of charge. Northwestern Mutual, American Family Insurance, Milwaukee Tool, Scotland to Hague, and I am positive I am missing someone, and it'll come back. Those are all the space donors. And then we have other donors that come on for specific programs. So like Generac, another local company, funded that aforementioned Women in Mechanical Engineering Day. And they brought their employees in to help volunteer for the day. They provided guest speakers. So corporate engagement is really deep, not only in my department, but in a lot of others. But we see a real spectrum of engagement. Sometimes it's funding, sometimes it's funding and volunteerism. Sometimes like Clarios is a really good example. They used our space and they ran their own engineering challenge day. I had a very easy job. I just helped manage registration and marketing, but their engineers ran the whole day. They put together the curriculum, they staffed it. So the sky's kind of the limit. I'm sure there's more things that'll come up in the next years as now that the center's open of other ways we engage.
I think that's really important, especially for manufacturers to hear. I was taking part in a conversation on LinkedIn yesterday, and the individual made a really good point. Like, a lot of people are doing a lot of talking and saying, "Oh, this is what needs to happen," and and I think he was getting kind of annoyed because it's a lot of talking and not really a lot of action. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to change. I want people to hear these stories and listen to what's going on. And all of those donors, they're stepping up, they're being proactive. And I think another way to be proactive as well is, come visit MSOE, volunteer your time, bring in, your products and your services, or set up a field trip. Get a hold of Liz, set up a field trip, bring the students to your facility and actually provide a live demo of what you're actually doing. And I'm not just talking about for kids that are at MSOE, but I'm talking about kids before that. Like, be proactive and getting in front of the next generation and showing them all of the wonderful and cool things that you're doing, because that's the only way we're going to get their attention, is if we actually put ourselves in front of them. So I think that's great that you have a lot of support and donors who support the cause and really want to get people excited about STEM opportunities and start closing that skills gap. Another thing that I noticed on MSOE's website is that you do have a section and you mentioned that you might not be able to talk a lot about this because it's kind of out of your area, but you do have a section on diversity and inclusion. And one of Maven's mission is to really highlight all of the amazing women in the sector, because I feel like it's important that we start diversifying the sector so that we can be more innovative and more creative and more profitable and more successful. And I think it's really cool that MSOE is kind of having that as one of their missions and goals to do it. So can you talk about like any kind of difference in strategies to hit those demographics that we probably would miss hitting, especially with women or Black and brown individuals? Like, what's changes are you making in the way that you're recruiting to get those individuals excited about STEM opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about our K12 strategies because they align up into our collegiate ones. Two plugs I'll make is the most recent MSOE podcast that just came out. The last episode in that series called Rooted in STEM, our VP, Chandra Mitchell, who oversees diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives, so DEIB at MSOE, is the co-speaker on that episode. And we talk a lot about this in depth. So I won't wax on too much about it, but Chandra does a really good job talking about at the collegiate level. Her background was in admissions before she moved into this VP level. She talks a lot about the very specific strategies that MSOE uses, but generally speaking, I think we're aware we can be better. If you walk across our campus, we don't look like the city of Milwaukee. We've gotten better every year. There was a really good story in the Milwaukee, I want to say it was the Journal Sentinel, might have been the Biz Times, a local paper, that also talks in depth kind of about how MSOE has made such a targeted effort to help students get to our campus, especially students of color and underrepresented students like women in manufacturing. There's a lot of different ways to do that. So for some students, it's purely financial. The interest is there, the talent is there, they want to be on our campus, but like with any private school, the sticker shock is a lot. So if there's any parents or students watching this, Applying to MSOE is free. And I always tell students, apply, it's free. And then you'll figure out what that actual cost is, because scholarships and so many other things, which are very much supported by corporate partners, kind of circling back to our past topic, help make an education here successful. I believe we just partnered with All in Milwaukee, which also helps close that last dollar gap for students who might want to come to our campus and are from Milwaukee. Other initiatives too are just very intentional partnerships. So our admissions team, it's going to schools, helping students understand the application process, understanding financial aid, understanding all the majors that are here. Our name's Milwaukee School of Engineering. We very much focus on engineering. That's what we were founded in, but we also have a nursing school. We have a business school. We have a technical sales program. There's a lot of other ways that students can kind of find themselves rooted in a STEM education here. So again, I will stop there from like what we do on the collegiate side, because again, Chandra's comments on that episode, Rooted in STEM, are really good. On our side, again, a big piece is accessibility. So how can we make programs regardless of race, gender, socioeconomic status? If you need to help to get here, how can we make every barrier possible go away? How can we help you get transportation here? How can we waive the fee? How can we make the scholarship process as easy as possible? So one example is when I started here, coming from engineering and not having a lot of background in STEM, I had made our scholarship process for our coding clubs a little more in depth than it needed to be. And now it's shoot me an email. If you need a scholarship code for coding clubs, I give you a code and you're in, no questions asked. And we've just seen that model works really well and makes people who want to come into our programs not feel like burdened by, well, I have to fill out the application to get into the club. I have to fill out the application for a scholarship, jump through all these hoops. So making things as easy as possible, but also being really intentional to kind of, the whole drive behind Mavens of Manufacturing. How do we get people who look like us, who have the same experiences as us, sharing what they're doing in the world? How do I get, another female who's worked in industrial engineering helping teach our industrial engineering outreach programs? How, especially with girls, do we address the belief gap? How do we show them that it's, as a student who has really struggled with math, I would have loved to have heard someone in middle school who's like, the fractions you heard, this is the hardest math I do all day on the production floor. It's all fractions just scaled up across multiple processes. That would have been life-changing for me versus like having this doubt, like, well, I just failed my pre-algebra exam. There is no way I could be an engineer. And again, I could go on, but I think these community partners and corporate partners are huge in bringing working professionals into our activities to help address all of those different gaps.
I think one of the best organizations, and I don't want to leave other organizations out, I'm only saying best because it's actually trying to be a global organization now with chapters in other countries, is the Women in Manufacturing. And they have a lot of great events, and I know they have a lot of opportunities for students as well too. And I think it's great for companies, even whether you're male or female. I think it's great for men as well to get connected with organizations like that, because then they have resources. Because one of the big questions that I get from some of my men colleagues is, how can I be a better advocate for women, and what can I do? So just providing resources for men as well, so they can reach out and say, hey, this is what I have going on. Do you know of anyone? Can you connect me with anyone who might be a woman in this space, so that, the students that I have who are girls aren't feeling uncomfortable because they're one or two of like 20 students. Because that seems like to be a big issue, especially in high school. I did this event that a lot of people have already known and heard about. And out of the 30 students that attended the event, there was like 4 girls, and they were getting a little uncomfortable because they were just like, are there going to be any women presenters here? And one of them actually brought his wife and a woman employee that he has. And they felt so much comfortable because they were like, okay, now I can ask these questions that I would have been uncomfortable asking. And I can get an idea of what it's like to be in this space as a girl. And it was really helpful. So just working together and kind of making all of this a more comfortable situation, I think, is key to get kids in and get them excited and have them pursue opportunities in STEM. So I really appreciate all that stuff that you're doing. And you did mention your podcast, and I just noticed it today when I was looking up MSOE. And I just wanted to ask you, what is that podcast? What was the inspiration behind it? and what are some of the things that you're focusing on in those discussions that you're having?
Yeah. So this was my other disclaimer that our marketing team led that along with our on-site radio station, WMSE. So I will speak very high level, but highly encourage anyone who wants to learn more about the podcast. It's 4 episodes. You can find it on most podcast platforms. I think I listen to it on Spotify. But the impetus behind it was really, how can we share what's going on at MSOE in a longer format than maybe that quick photo ad you see driving down the road, looking at our website? How can you really get to know some of the people on our campus and the diversity of experiences that are here? So the episode I'm most familiar with is the one I helped with called Rooted in STEM, which really, again, if anyone wants to hear more in depth about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging on our campus, as well as K12 outreach that we do to that effect, that is a great long form version of effectively what you and I are talking about today. But some other cool episodes, like one was we have a partnership with Rogers Behavioral Health out of our nursing school. And we had a student talk about his experiences being a neurodiverse student on our campus and what is it like. And he just graduated. So like, what was it like to be an industrial engineering student in his instance and be on a campus and have all these different supports around mental health, which I think I'm thankful to hear like topics of mental health coming up a lot more in recent years. And I think having campuses that address it in a really meaningful way helps prepare us all for the workforce. And then I'm trying to remember some of the other topics. There's 2 other episodes.
I think there was one on CNC machining, like the health or something of CNC machining. What was that one about?
Let me see. I'm going to pull it up real quick. So we are fortunate that we have a rapid prototyping center here on campus, which is a very cool spot. It's under our Applied Technology Center. So just pull up Rethink What's Possible.
And just to mention too about the mental health topic, I think that's really important because manufacturing was known for not really having any conversations surrounding mental health, and engineering and manufacturing can be quite chaotic and stressful and not very easy. And I did talk to someone a while ago. Her name is Lale, and she's part of the Women in Manufacturing chapter in Colorado. And she is also an engineer and she works with Colorado University. And she was talking about how some of the students just got so stressed out, especially during finals week. And she's like, it was hard. And she's like, now we try to, be aware of that situation and explain to them, like, this is a learning experience. If you make mistakes, if you fail, it's okay. That's what we're here for. And she's like, it's really something that we're trying to incorporate with some of these courses because they can get pretty intense. And she's like, a lot of students, feel like they can't talk sometimes or express what they're going on. And she's like, so we try to intervene and make it a part of their curriculum so that they know that we're here if they need help. There's people to talk to. And she's like, and then we try to prep them as best as possible too. So when they are done with school and they go out into the real world, they actually have resources and mentors that they can connect to and feel more comfortable about that job search. So that's a really good episode if you haven't heard it on Maven. So I'll recommend anyone to go back and listen to that. But for your podcast with the CNC episode, I didn't know if you found that. I was trying to.
Yeah. The episodes we have. So the first one is around Matt Munt, one of our alum who was on Shark Tank and kind of talking about our entrepreneurship here at the university. And Matt's a really nice, very cool guy. That one's an interesting one to listen to. The Erasing the Stigma episode, which is about mental health. And then the episode I think you might be referencing is our Humanizing Machine Learning. So they talk about a bunch AI. We're one of, I don't want to misrepresent a statistic. So we started our computer science degree program a few years ago with the opening of Derrick's Computational Science Hall. And we're one of the few AI-focused computer science programs. And we actually have an NVIDIA supercomputer here on our campus, which we're super lucky to have. But that really blends its way because AI, I think one of the common things is all of our jobs are going to have AI in some form. Mm-hmm. Especially students who are in elementary school now, it's hard to imagine jobs that in some way won't be touched by AI. Right. So they've talked a lot about, and I think they touch on that on this episode, is how does AI touch different subject areas? How does it manifest itself in our daily lives? And I know manufacturing, of course, is one of those big things we talk about. I used to work in a plant that produced fuses. And when I listen and hear about AI, I just think about what tasks was I working with people with as an industrial engineer that might be automated in the future that really weren't possible to be automated in the past because you need to be able to identify objects. I think the level of detail that goes into manufacturing processes is often, I don't want to say dumbed down, but overlooked. Like people don't realize something as simple as a fuse cap in these multi-stage dies. There's multiple people who are very skilled producing a really basic part. And I think AI brings in this other level of really cool technology that helps make those really delicate, detailed processes even better.
Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, if anyone's interested in listening to that podcast, make sure you stop by at MSOE's website because they have a link directly to it, and I'll actually flash their website real quick. So www.msoe.edu. Go there, take it out. They have a lot of great information. And before I let you go, Liz, I just wanted to, ask you one final question. What can we as an audience in manufacturing and engineering expect from MSOE, next year? 2022 is just around the corner. Do you have any really exciting projects that you're working on or some of your students are focusing on? Are there any new additions coming into the STEM building? What can we expect and look forward to?
Yeah. So to anyone from MSOE listening, I know there are a ton of new facilities opening and other big things going on around campus that I probably should speak to, and I'm blanking on right now. So I'm going to speak specifically to STEM. So our building opened in 2020. We haven't really had a full year where there hasn't been a global pandemic going on. So I think next year, yeah, right. It's so funny. Like opening during COVID, which is a much longer conversation, was probably one of the best things for our facility just because so many people needed space when their schools and other buildings closed. So what I'm hoping you'll see is even more activity in the STEM Center up and running. We just had our collegiate Lunabotics team, which is a NASA robotics competition, move in. So you'll see more of their robot around the center. And we're constantly looking to upgrade our content and curriculum. So right now we're looking at adding more artificial intelligence driven programs, and actually manufacturing was one of the thrusts. We've talked about AI and robotic arms and how they assist or automate completely manufacturing processes. I'll do one quick plug for our STEM on-site program. That's how most schools and organizations can get programming through us. And that's where you'll see a lot of these content upgrades that I'm really excited about as we continue to expand as we move into 2022.
Which is a very clear sign that manufacturing is not your grandfather's manufacturing anymore, and that it is changing and it's going to continue to change. And there's a lot of really cool and amazing high-tech stuff going on. So it's really great to hear that MSOE is, adapting their curriculum and including some of these newer career pathways that are going to show up within the next 5 to 10 years into the curriculum. For anyone that might be interested in attending MSOE, who do they contact, or how can they set up a facility, or facility? I'm so used to being in manufacturing. Campus tour with MSOE.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up our website, the website you flashed earlier, msoe.edu. Under admissions and aid, there's a whole bunch of sections that answer questions people might have about attending here. It's in the main bar when you go to the landing page. But on the undergraduate admissions page, you can set up a tour, you can apply. So again, it's like 5 minutes, really fast and free. That's a great way to get information if you're considering MSOE and you're a current junior or senior. We have open house days and other events coming up. So our website's the best place. And the website for our undergraduate admissions is explore@msoe.edu. That's another great way to get information. If you're like, too much info on the website, I have one question and I want someone to answer it right away, that's a great way to get in touch with our team there too.
And we'll close out with Aiden, who says, thank you, Meaghan and Liz, for sharing and having this conversation. You two are working on some incredible initiatives. Looking forward to helping out where I can. Exciting times with tons of opportunity. Couldn't agree more, Aiden. Thank you for your comment. We really appreciate you taking the time and viewing in. As to all of our viewers out there, thank you for sticking with us. I know LinkedIn had some technical challenges, but hey, that's what you get with live recordings. But thank you all for joining us on Mavens of Manufacturing. Have a happy Friday and a great weekend. Bye, everyone. This has been another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. Subscribe for more and make sure to tune in next time.